With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Give me a second here. Get this. Oh. News has come out. Kathleen Kennedy is leaving Lucasfilm. It's now being reported by the major trades such as Variety is writing Star Wars boss Kathleen Kennedy planning to exit Lucasfilm at the end of 2025. They go on to write the following. Kathleen Kennedy, the longtime president of Lucasfilm, is expected to step down at the end of 2025. She intends to retire after her current contract ends, according to a source with knowledge of her plans. The Force Awakens remains the highest grossing, guys, this is a big thing. The Force Awakens remains the highest grossing film in domestic box office history with $936 million and $2 billion globally. But the triad of Skywalker-centric blockbusters experienced diminishing returns. 2018 Solo: A Star Wars Story became the first Star Wars movie ever to lose money in its theatrical run. Kennedy also oversaw 2023's Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, the fifth and final in the Harrison Ford-led series. The action-adventure, which relaunched the property after 15 years, was and this is in Variety's words, a catastrophic failure. All right. Now, before we pop bottles...
Are you really going to open that?
Maybe. Actually, this is Anne's. I might get in trouble if I do, but I do, before I go into the why this is good news part, I do want to remind everybody about the fact that, and I feel like I have to do this every time we talk about how Kathleen Kennedy should not be the head of Lucasfilm, is that I am not one of these brain dead, anything that's Kathleen Kennedy is bad morons. I am an appreciator of Kathleen Kennedy. I'm a fan of Kathleen Kennedy. Kathleen Kennedy, as far as I'm concerned, is a first ballot Hall of Famer, if there was a Hollywood Hall of Fame, per se. The greatest filmmaker of all time, Steven Spielberg, I always mention this, but it's worth saying every time, calls her the greatest producer in the history of Hollywood. And I just want to give a little bit of her resume. All right? Just a tiny bit of her resume. Do you know that 8 of her films that she's produced have been nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards? 8 of her films. Most producers would kill for one film in their lifetime to be nominated for Best Picture. She's had 8. And here's just a small taste of the films she's produced. Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, Twister. It's a diverse set of films too. Twister, The Sixth Sense, Seabiscuit, War of the Worlds, Munich, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Lincoln, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Poltergeist, Gremlins, The Goonies, Back to the Future, The Color Purple, Empire of the Sun, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Cape Fear, Hook, Noises Off, Jurassic Park. That's like a quarter.
No, I mean, she's got to be one of the most historic producers in Hollywood.
Yeah, that's just a quarter
of
the films that she's produced. But as I mentioned on Open Mic the other day, just because you're good at one thing, even if you're the best in film, that doesn't mean you're going to be good at another job in film. The example I raised up was twofold. Greatest professional athlete in history is Wayne Gretzky. He wasn't a very good coach. He tried to coach the Phoenix Coyotes, didn't go so well. Greatest basketball player in history, Michael Jordan. One of the greatest of all time. Not a very good owner.
Didn't play baseball very well either.
Even the most hardcore of Jordan fans will tell you, wasn't a very good owner, right? Just because you're good at one thing doesn't mean you're going to be good at another. And just because you're not good at this new thing you're trying doesn't mean you weren't great at what you used to do. Kathleen Kennedy is arguably the greatest of all time, depending on who you ask, as a straight up producer in Hollywood. Steven Spielberg once said, she's the one who gives me the ability to bring my visions to life. But she was not a good head of a studio. I, like everybody else in the world, and I've mentioned this many times, was all for it. First, when George Lucas named her co-chair of Lucasfilm, and then after he sold it, named her as his successor. I was all for it. On paper, it was a great hire. Mm-hmm. On paper, it made sense. And it was worth giving a shot to. But as I've always said, the two most important jobs of the studio head are the two jobs she failed brutally at the most. Number one, have a plan. Not only did she not have a plan for the new Star Wars universe, she actively prevented others from actually formulating a plan, adopting instead the let's just play it as it goes mentality, which started off great with The Force Awakens. Again, highest grossing film in US box office history. Probably will never be beat. I mean, maybe it will, but it certainly hasn't been beaten in a lot of years since it's already came out. But then as each film progressed, you started to realize they'd actually had no idea where they were going to go with this. And then we ended up with The Rise of Skywalker, which is just one of the most dumbfoundingly ridiculous things I'd ever seen. Have there been some wins in her tenure as the head of Lucasfilm? Absolutely, there have been. 100% there have been some wins. Rogue One, it's one of my favorite Star Wars movies. Andor, best thing Star Wars has done since the original trilogy. I mean, Mandalorian, there have been absolutely some wins. I don't want to take that away from her. But the two most important jobs, number one, having a plan. She failed at that. The second, equally as important job is recruiting the right people around you and making sure that you are creatively on the same page with the storytellers you bring on board. In as much as we joke about Kevin Feige and Marvel and the Blade situation, in less time, Kathleen Kennedy has had 9 of them. 9 Blade situations. Anybody remember Guillermo del Toro's Jabba the Hutt project? Guillermo del Toro himself got on social media and said, I'm doing a Jabba the Hutt project with Star Wars. Super excited about it. Then never happened. Kevin Feige, remember Kevin Feige was going to do Star Wars? Everybody celebrated, popping bottles, blah, blah. Never happened. Rian Johnson had announced that they were going to do another trilogy. Guess what? Never happened. Taika Waititi, they announced from the skies. Taika Waititi's going to be doing a new film with us. Blah, blah, blah. Never happened. The Boba Fett movie. Remember that? They had the director and everything. Boom. Never happened. The Solo reshoots.
Yeah, with Gareth Edwards, or no, it wasn't.
No. That Ron Howard brought on Lord and Miller.
Yeah.
Had done initially.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Lord and Miller done initially.
Yeah.
She was never on the same page creatively with Lord and Miller.
I think
she had done her job and made sure that she and the filmmakers were on the same page, and Lord and Miller share equal blame in this. I'm not saying they don't. But they never would have got to the point where it's like, guys, you are making a totally different movie than you agreed to make and that we gave vision for. And they ended up having to scrap a bunch of that movie. They brought in Ron Howard, who salvaged it. I like Solo. Solo's a fun little movie. I like it.
Super fun.
Yeah.
But another example of that thing, Colin Trevorrow's Duel of the Fates movie. We got Colin Trevorrow. Oh, yeah, I hired him. He's doing it, blah, blah, blah. Oh, turns out we're not on the same page. Why didn't you fucking figure that out before you announced to the world that he was doing it and finished the screenplay? Oh, and let's not even forget about Patty Jenkins, Rogue Squadron. Rolled her all out onto a runway, had a life-size X-Wing fighter. Big announcement, we're doing this. Oh, turns out we're not on the same page creatively. Maybe you should have thought of that before. Guys, the list goes on and on and on and on. The two most important jobs, if you're the studio head, number one, surround yourself with the right people. Make sure you have a plan. She hasn't done either of them. None of that takes away from her incredible, legendary career as a producer. None of that is taken away at all. But she fundamentally failed right from the get-go of the most important responsibilities of the studio. And quite frankly, for her own good and for the good of the studio, she should have been gone years ago. Years ago. Hell, I even told you guys back in 2023 that I feel like throwing this person under the bus, but I was even told by somebody very in the know at Disney that she was going to be gone at the end of 2023, 2024. It had been decided. Remember that? I told you guys that. She was going to be gone by the end of 2023, beginning of 2024. She was going to get a victory lap with Indiana Jones. And then somewhere at the end of the year, and guess what? The end of the year came and went, and she was still there.
Sources are saying it's because she didn't want to go out on a really big low.
Well, I mean,
and there's also been some speculation that with the switch over from Chapek to Iger again.
Yeah.
They wanted to just keep everything stable
Yep.
for a bit. But for whatever the reason, I got told, and I told my audience, beginning of 2024, end of 2023, Kathleen Kennedy is going to be gone. And it's like, we were singing, may old acquaintance be forgotten. Kathleen Kennedy was still there. Should have been done years ago, but now it's done. Look, again, it is with all reverence and respect to the career, the legendary career of Kathleen Kennedy. But in as much as hiring me to be your mechanic, I can't fix a car worth shit. That wouldn't take away that I'm pretty good at my real job. It is about damn time. This will, of course, open up the conversations about where do they go? Who do you bring on next? It's a big question around Disney because they're also looking for a new CEO. So Disney's got to find a new CEO to, like Bob Iger and the board. They're all looking for his next replacement. They would be good if they could get it done, get the Lucasfilm thing done before he goes. I've always said this, guys. When people ask me who should be the next head of Lucasfilm, I say somebody we've never heard of. Somebody who's just brilliant at business, brilliant at running large organizations, somebody who knows how to delegate, somebody who knows how to hire the right people around them, somebody we've never heard of because they're not famous, but is a brilliant business mind, brilliant at running organizations, and know how to facilitate other people's success. That's who they should get. Or maybe a John Favreau to do, like, we were talking about this before the show started, maybe a John Favreau to do like a James Gunn over at DC. Have John Favreau be co-president and then bring in somebody else who's better at running the business of the company and let John Favreau kind of look after the creative direction, you know, maybe write and direct one or two things himself, something like that. Again, my first vote would just be for somebody who knows how to run an organization and then hire creative people under them. But whatever. Again, with all due respect to Kathleen Kennedy and her amazing career that I will always be a fan of, it is about damn time. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's episode, NordVPN. All right, let's be real. There's nothing worse than wanting to stream your favorite show or watch a live game only to find out it's blocked in your country. But guess what? With NordVPN, that is never a problem. With just one click, you can switch your virtual location and access content from anywhere in the world. I have loved using NordVPN. Whether I'm traveling and using public Wi-Fi or just shopping online, NordVPN keeps my personal info safe and private. By switching my location, I can even save money on flights, hotels, and subscriptions. It's like a cheat code for getting the best deals. NordVPN is the fastest VPN in the world, so there's no buffering when I'm streaming. Plus, their threat protection feature blocks malware, trackers, and phishing attempts, keeping my devices safe 24/7. And with just one account, I can protect up to 10 devices, so my whole setup is covered. So to get the best discount on your NordVPN plan, head to nordvpn.com/John Campea, and our link will even give you 4 extra months for free on the 2-year plan. Plus, there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Links in the description. Check it out now. Anyway, Rob, I texted you this yesterday that she was gone. Your thoughts on her leaving? How are you feeling? How's you reacting to this?
Well, like
today?
you, I mean, she basically produced our childhoods. You know, I mean, and I've always hated the fact that people who don't understand how movies get made would poo-poo the fact that, like, well, you know, she produced Spielberg movies, but Spielberg was the real genius behind it. Yes,
yeah, tell me you know nothing about movies without telling me you know nothing about movies.
Steven Spielberg was able to be Steven Spielberg because he had Kathleen Kennedy producing his movies. Because, yeah, she worked her way up like a lot of good people do from the basement and created she's a phenomenal producer, and her legacy is unimpeachable. But I'll tell you something. She took Star Wars and turned it into a TV brand. And I think that's the worst thing. I think that the Star Wars franchise has literally no excitement behind it. And the next Star Wars movie we're getting, the first in 6 years, is a TV show put on the big screen.
Yep.
And I think
By the way, we're now on, like you said, we're now on 6 years without a Star Wars
6 years
movie.
without a Star Wars movie after Disney, which is honestly unconscionable. And the last Star Wars movie was $1 billion fall from the heights of the Star Wars movie that the director made before. And I think I'll tell you something, John. There's no excitement around Star Wars. Zero. There's no.
I don't know that I'd say zero, but it's diminished.
I just think people are like over it. I think it's going to take the thing about Star Wars as a brand, without Kathleen Kennedy, I don't think that there's anybody out there, even somebody like, if you brought in a Chris McQuarrie to write and direct a Star Wars movie, that would be exciting because he's a very smart guy. You have Tony Gilroy. Andor is the only thing exciting to me about Star Wars because you have an auteur, you have a writer-director who's in charge of that show, who had a vision for that show, who's building off of Rogue One. And if you take, I'm sure the first 2 seasons of Andor and Rogue One is probably the best thing overall to have come out of Kathleen Kennedy's tenure. And mostly it's because of one guy who is smart, who wrote and directed something in Andor and also came in and directed.
But to give credit where it's due, she's the one who hired him. She's the one who brought 100%. Him in and all that kind of stuff.
And to be fair, she did a lot of things, like getting Lord Miller to do Solo on the surface was a really good idea. I was thinking out of the box. There was a lot going on that I think got derailed by Carrie Fisher's untimely death. I think the Disney overlords had a lot of things that they wanted. They wanted their own. They're like, we have to plant a flag and make our own Star Wars brand. So C-3PO is going to have a red arm, and the Millennium Falcon's going to have a rectangular dish, so they know it's our Star Wars. There was a lot of stuff that was happening above her head that was affecting her tenure. But at the end of the day, the Star Wars brand has been very, very diminished, and Disney needs. I don't even know if there's anybody that exists in Hollywood that can save Star Wars, to be honest. I don't know, because somebody would have to want to do it. And that puts somebody's in a position where they're basically taking the wreckage of one of the greatest franchises and looking at it and going, what do we do now?
If only there was a major Star Wars fan who has had record-setting success at running a genre brand. Oh, maybe Kevin Feige could take it over.
I mean,
it would be a lateral move for him, though. It would just be a lateral move. It wouldn't be a promotion.
I mean, maybe, but I mean, he's busy. He's got his own brand that he has to resurrect, and it'll be interesting. Like, I don't know, why would you want to go work on Star Wars, and especially with Disney overlords? I mean, if somebody could come in and have great creative freedom, maybe, but who wants to do that?
But no studio is going to give you pure creative freedom,
No,
especially not with. Well, it's not their most valuable IP anymore, but especially with something of a huge valuable IP. That's been the question for a long time, though, right? Like, in all the discussions that have been had about Kathleen Kennedy but who comes in and replaces her? And that's going to be key, because let's face it, the Star Wars fandom has scared off a lot of the top potential people.
Yeah.
Because there have been a lot of big creative people in Hollywood who'd say, I don't want to have anything to do with that toxic Star Wars fandom. I just don't want anything to do with it. So that's going to make the job a little bit harder. We'll see. Chris, I mean, this has been a day I've been waiting for a long time.
A lot of people have.
What's your reaction to it? And what happens next, do you think?
Well, I think the timing is that Star Wars is poised, the entire franchise is poised to launch into A New Hope. We have the opportunity to really do something great.
Nicely done.
You like that? So we can hopefully have a new era ushered in with a new studio head and really see Star Wars go to new heights and get back on the big screen and make this a entirely different kind of universe that still plays in that sandbox. You know, we're always talking about, why are we still so close with the Skywalkers? Why are there only like 18 people in the galaxy? We've got this whole galaxy to play with, so hopefully we can go explore more of that. I'm very glad that you gave us all of Kathleen Kennedy's roses, though, as well, because sometimes this chat gets a little crazy.
They get blinders on.
Yeah, well, if I was running it, you're not. None of us are. And Kathleen Kennedy is a great producer. This was not the job for her.
No,
right?
It wasn't. Yeah.
And a lot of times, skill sets are just not laterally transitioned. This was not a good fit for her. But also, the woman is about to be 72. George Lucas sold Lucasfilms at 68. So she has earned her time to herself. She has a wonderful track record as a producer. And hopefully we just get somebody else in there who does justice to what we all want with our Star Wars fandom.
You know, it could be it could be a good time for her too, because follow me here. It, in theory, because we got nothing else coming out in 2025, right, from Star Wars. Andor could be her swan song. And like, if you want to go out on a high note, going out with Andor as the last thing you officially did that got released, you know what? As funny as it is to say, that would mean she gets to bookend with success. Her first thing was The Force Awakens. Broke the all-time box office, still the highest grossing film in the US box office in history, and I still think a very good movie. And then you end with Andor season 2. That could be great. You know what I really hope? I hope they get a new person in time to axe this idea of another Rey movie.
Well, I was going to ask you. That's what I want to ask you. What do you think the odds are that movie happens?
5%. I mean, listen, even within Kathleen Kennedy's Lucasfilm, there have to be people in that building that are going, well, God, we should not be trying to come out with a Rey movie. That's just that we're doubling down on the divisiveness and everything. Like our fan base is very divided on that. I like the character very much. I love Daisy Ridley in the role, but even I think there would be a terrible idea for Star Wars and its fandom to do it. And I just got to hope that whoever they get to bring in to replace her, and I've seen some people in the live chat asking if she'll get to pick her successor. No chance in hell. She will not be the one picking her successor. I just hope that they get them in time, that they're not too far down the road on getting that Rey movie up and running. I hope it gets canceled and they go in a new direction.
I just think that's look, if they had somebody come in and like had a great take on Knights of the Old Republic.
Oh,
and get in and plan
but remember
that.
They did. They had Benioff and Weiss, who they all said had this great pitch for an Old Republic thing. That's another one that then fell off the rails.
What's up with, like, didn't we also lose Levy? Wasn't Sean Levy supposed to be?
Sean Levy. But
and
technically speaking, they've never said that. Sean Levy's never said that thing's off.
Yeah. Right.
But again, it's one of a dozen things that have been, we're going to do this. And yet we never see anything manifest.
I wonder if they go back and try to reconnect with any of these directors.
Depends on who the new head is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because I thought Skeleton Crew was respectable. You know, I liked it. I thought it was good. But, you know,
I love Skeleton Crew personally.
It just didn't do anything for the brand.
No.
It didn't create any new excitement. I mean, you really need to take Star Wars and pretend there isn't any Star Wars and start from scratch. Now, I don't mean to get rid of all the canon of Star Wars, but just leave everything behind.
Tell a story that could exist outside of Star Wars regardless.
Yes. You need to go back and start again. Start anew.
Jump ahead 100 years.
And I don't think Dave Filoni is the guy to do that.
I absolutely don't think Dave. I really respect Dave Filoni.
I do too.
He is not the guy to be the head of Lucasfilm at all.
No.
But it's going to be really interesting to see how this goes. Guys, the question is for you. All joking aside, I have a huge amount of respect for Kathleen Kennedy. I really, really do. But again, this was the wrong job for her. Just like owning a team was the wrong job for Michael Jordan. Doesn't take away how great he was at what he used to do. It's that this was clearly not the thing for her, and it's time for her to go. And like Chris pointed out, man, she's earned her retirement. By the way, I don't believe she's retiring. I believe she'll produce
She'll
a
probably
couple
do
more.
something else.
But she'll
Yeah.
produce some other things
She's
later
married
on.
to Frank Marshall.
I know. I mean,
there's
they're
Jurassic
a power
Park.
couple.
They got
They're a power
She'll still
couple.
produce more, and I hope that she does. But how do you feel about this? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.